Hey, let's talk about games. Hello my friend and welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be talking about why I think Vermintide 2 has a real shot at being Game of the Year. This isn't a bit of fanboyism, this is just because I love the game and I see some real potential and some real hope in this title, not only for the Games Workshop franchise in terms of gaming, but for just players in general to really enjoy a good cooperative survival based sort of FPS game. This is a beauty. Now, to kick things off as to why I think this game has a real shot, firstly, the obvious stuff. Its visuals, its aesthetics, its visceral feel in terms of combat, the audio when you connect a weapon with a shield, down to when you shoot an arrow and it goes through multiple enemies. A lot of the stuff within this game is just very crisp, it's very clean, it's satisfying. There is a lot of just pure joy and pleasure you get from playing this game, just in terms of swinging swords and shooting arrows, etc. The game is a beauty. Now obviously that isn't enough to get Game of the Year. That's just a little bit of icing on the cake. You don't have to have great visuals and aesthetics to make a great game. What I do think this game is going to do and really tap into is the customizable playstyle that comes with the sort of the current fashion. 2017, 2018 I think is going to be huge for these types of FPS games where you have customizable playstyles. We can obviously go back to Borderlands, etc. We can look at Overwatch, etc. There is a real appetite for games that allow your playstyle to basically be somewhat personalized, and this can be taken right the way from a casual experience of just, oh, I want to be a little bit tanky, to those that want to then min-max and make things that are completely viable for the hardest difficulties, etc. It instantly caters to a variety of crowds, and I really believe that there's a real appetite for this because it not only improves on just the amount of total replay value a game has, but it also allows you just to enjoy it more by simply expressing your own experience as a player and expressing your own personality as a player. Now moving on from this, they've still stayed true to their original roots and genre, and well done here. They've kept this as a first person, I would call it a first person cooperative survival game, which forces cross-player interaction, albeit with bots or with other people. Those elites that jump on you, that spawn whirling, twirling things of doom that grab you out of nowhere, the Packmasters, the Rat Ogres, every elite and mob in this game tends to force you to interact with other players. And I personally loved this genre back when Left 4 Dead came out because it forced a social sort of interaction which some games don't. In many ways it reminds me of an MMO, when you have to first find a group and go into a dungeon to get that loot that you want to get, although in a completely different context. This still forces player interaction in another way. Now granted, you can do the game with bots, etc., but I think a real strength of this game is going to be the community that develops, players meeting other players, humorous moments develop when you have people interacting with other people. When someone makes a mistake, it can be frustrating, it can be immensely satisfying. That's the pleasure in this sort of game, and that's for me why I think players and community are going to really sort of develop around it, and the game is going to just thrive. Now as well as that, you're also going to have a good offline presence because the min-maxing with this game in particular expands beyond just the typical, oh, here's a good item, here's a bad item, here's the stats you want, here's the stats you don't. There's now a lot more to think about. There's going to be discussions on Reddit as to what's the best subclass for Bardin. There's going to be discussions as to which weapon goes with which subclass and which talents should be or could be used. There's going to be videos doing X, Y, Z. There's going to be people doing things their own way. There's going to be a meta. That meta's going to change. It's going to be a lot more organic, living, etc. Small balance changes here and there will change the quote-unquote meta. I know it sounds like I'm talking about a MOBA here, but once you've got that sort of information flowing with the game, it really helps develop a community because suddenly there's people talking about it. There's YouTube videos, there's lots of YouTube videos, there's guides, there's Reddit threads, there's tweets, you name it. This game, I think, has a lot more potential to stay in the public eye for longer because it's going to attract so much sort of conversation. And the next thing as well is the game is fucking hard. And I would say, having not played the first game for a while, that it does certainly feel harder, and a lot of my friends that are playing this with me are also in agreement that the champion difficulty is pretty rough, and if the Lord difficulty above champion is going to be that much harder, boy gee whiz, this is going to be a real toughie, and for many players as well, that is a beauty. That is something to work to. The hardest difficulty Torment in the last one was doable, it was challenging, you shouldn't make too many mistakes, but it was doable. Within this, I really get the impression that we're going to be grinding gear, leveling up fairly smoothly, which by the way is a massive improvement on the previous game, and after leveling up, well, we're going to have to then start really learning the craft of the game, learning the combat of the game, because if you think this is a left button spam fest, try playing the harder difficulty and come back and tell that to me again. This game requires skill, knowledge, understanding and execution of that knowledge, and that for many players is going to satisfy the community that's going to stay with the game perhaps a little bit longer. And that's again what I really like. It's going to cater to the, I'm going to say casuals, but players who just want to play the game through, see what it's got, and then they will ditch it. And that's fine to do for games. But it's also going to cater for those that want to learn the combat, learn the craft, learn how to interact with enemies, how to interact with other players in a way that's going to maximise your playstyle, your efficiency, and allow you to complete these tough challenges. The one thing and question I have on my mind as to will this really be a real Game of the Year contender is going to be how is the game supported. I think the only potential drawback, now don't get me wrong, the base game is and looks amazing, although we don't know a lot of things right now, it's still awaiting balance changes and I'm only talking in terms of the closed beta. But the one thing that I would like to see is how they're supporting the game in terms of additional content. Now obviously the mod support is going to be there, and that's going to be a huge thing for this game. The mod community is going to jump all over this. Warhammer's got amazing modders. That's going to help the game no end. But as well as that, I would also like to see a shift away from their previous DLC model of just adding 2 maps, 1 weapon each time. Because if you've already grinded all of the gear, then really the only challenge is to complete the new maps on the hardest difficulty, and then you're done. I'd really like to see some ongoing love, care and attention put into the game that keeps players playing for other reasons than that, and granted the challenges will be there, but I'd like to see a greater trickle of content to keep players interacting and involved with the game for longer, although maybe the mod support will do that. But guys, that's why I think this game has a real shot at being Game of the Year. I'd like to see your thoughts down below. Is there anything that's holding this game back for you right now? Is there anything that you think really shines with this game? Have they nailed it, or is there a few things that they can improve on? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and you may well see a video on it soon. Take care guys, all the best.
Geht unter Match.